Listen carefully. This audiobook is not about being loud. It is not about winning arguments. It is not about domination or aggression. This is about holding your ground when pressure demands that you fold, when emotions try to pull you off center, when people test your boundaries, your values, your patience. Weak people react. Strong people explain. Unshakable people stand still. If you are tired of over-explaining, tired of defending your decisions, tired of giving your power away just to keep the peace, then stay with me, because by the end of this audiobook, you will no longer move just because someone pushes. Stop explaining yourself. That is not a suggestion, that is a command. Every unnecessary explanation is an unconscious request for permission. Permission to exist, permission to decide, permission to stand where you are. And here's the truth most people never face. Confident people don't ask to exist. They assume they're right to be here. You have a choice. You can live as someone who constantly justifies every move, or you can live as someone who moves and lets the world catch up. That's the key. Most people explain because they are uncomfortable with silence. They feel tension, they feel resistance, they feel the eyes on them. So they start talking, they add context, they soften edges, they apologize in advance. And in doing so, they give their power away. It's not about communication, it's about insecurity. You don't explain when you are grounded. You explain when you're afraid of disapproval. You don't need their permission. Look at how real leaders move. Not motivational speakers, not loud performers, real leaders. They state a decision once, then they act. They don't circle back to reassure. They don't argue with every opinion. They don't try to win emotional approval. They say fewer words, and those words land heavier. Compare that to the person who over-explains. They justify every boundary. They defend every choice. They respond to every challenge. They look busy, but they are weak. Because the moment you explain unnecessarily, you signal doubt, and the world responds to doubt by pushing harder. That's the pattern. You have a choice. When someone questions your decision, you can rush to clarify, or you can stay calm and let the decision stand. That's the key. Let's make this practical. Imagine you say no to something, a request, an invitation, a demand. The weak instinct is to explain why. I'm busy. I have a lot going on. I don't mean to disappoint you. Stop. Every extra sentence trains people to negotiate with you. Strong people say, no, that doesn't work for me, and they stop there. No footnotes, no emotional padding, no over-disclosure. Your life does not require a footnote. You don't need their permission. Now, let's go deeper. Explaining feels polite, but politeness becomes self-betrayal when it replaces clarity. It's not about kindness, it's about discipline. It's not about being rude, it's about being rooted. You can be calm without being soft. You can be respectful without being flexible. That's the key. Most people are trained from childhood to explain themselves to authority, teachers, parents, bosses. Over time, they internalize the habit. They start explaining themselves to everyone, strangers, friends, people who haven't earned access to their reasoning. That's a mistake. Your reasoning is valuable, and valuable things are not handed out freely. You have a choice. You can treat your thoughts like public property, or you can treat them like assets. Confident people guard their inner world. They don't narrate their lives. They don't argue with every opinion. They understand something critical. Not every question deserves an answer. That's the key. Let's talk about real-world consequences. When you over-explain at work, you weaken authority. When you over-explain in relationships, you invite manipulation. When you over-explain your boundaries, you teach people how to cross them. because explanations open doors. They create leverage points. They give people something to push against. Silence removes leverage. Calm certainty ends negotiation. You don't need their permission. Think about this. Have you ever noticed how people stop arguing with someone who doesn't react? Not because that person is aggressive, but because they are unmoved. Unmoved people are difficult to control. That's the key. Now let's address the fear underneath explaining. The fear is not conflict. The fear is rejection. Most people would rather over-explain than be misunderstood. But here's the truth. You will be misunderstood anyway. So stop sacrificing your strength to chase clarity that never comes. It's not about being understood. It's about being aligned. You have a choice. Explain to be liked, or stand firm and be respected. Respect lasts longer. That's the key. Here's a discipline to practice starting today. Before you respond, pause. Ask yourself one question. Am I explaining for clarity or for approval? If it's approval, stop talking. Say less. Hold eye contact. Let the silence do the work. Silence is not empty. Silence is full of authority. Your life does not require a footnote. Another discipline. When someone challenges your decision, repeat it. Don't expand it. I've decided. That's what I'm doing. This works for me. Repeat. Don't defend. Repetition builds gravity. That's the key. People who respect themselves don't argue about their right to exist. They don't audition their boundaries. They don't negotiate their values. They move forward quietly, and eventually the world adjusts. You don't need their permission. Let me be clear. This will feel uncomfortable at first. Your nervous system is addicted to explaining. It thinks safety comes from justification, but safety comes from self-trust. And self-trust is built through action, not words. It's not about confidence, it's about discipline. Discipline to stop filling silence. Discipline to let others feel uncomfortable. Discipline to stand where you are without apology. That's the key. The moment you stop explaining, something shifts. People listen differently. They test you less. They sense certainty. Not because you became louder, but because you became still. Stillness signals strength. Remember this. Every explanation you don't give strengthens your spine. Every pause you hold builds authority. Every boundary you state once rewires how others treat you. You have a choice. Speak to convince or speak to declare. Declarative people don't beg for agreement. Your life does not require a footnote. You don't need their permission. You stopped explaining yourself. Now you're ready for the next level, because silence is not just restraint, it's leverage. Emotional pressure is not authority. Say it again. Emotional pressure is not authority. Loud emotions do not equal truth. Intensity does not equal correctness. Outrage does not equal moral superiority. Most people confuse volume with power. They think whoever feels the most must be right. That mistake ruins decisions. It destroys boundaries. It hands control to the most emotional person in the room. You have a choice. You can submit to emotional pressure, or you can see it for what it is, noise. That's the key. Let's be clear. Emotion has a place, but emotion is not a command. Tears are not instructions. Anger is not leadership. Guilt is not evidence. Yet every day, people fold because someone feels strongly. A partner raises their voice. A coworker acts offended. A manager applies urgency and panic, and suddenly you move. Not because it's right, not because it's wise, but because it's uncomfortable. That's how emotional manipulation works. Pressure is not power. Real authority doesn't beg, it doesn't guilt, it doesn't rush you. Authority is calm. Authority is grounded. Authority doesn't need theatrics. That's the key. Look at relationships.
One person explodes, the other person retreats. Why? Because conflict feels dangerous. So the calmer person gives in, not to solve the issue, but to stop the emotional storm. Over time, this trains a pattern. Whoever gets emotional wins. That's not love, that's control. You have a choice. You can keep rewarding emotional outbursts, or you can stop responding to them. You don't need their permission. Let's talk about the workplace. Someone is always urgent, always offended, always dramatic. They push deadlines. They demand immediate responses. They use stress as leverage. And people comply. Not because it's reasonable, but because pressure feels authoritative. It isn't. Pressure is not power. Calm clarity beats emotional intensity every time, if you let it. That's the key. Here's the hard truth. Emotional people often rely on others being uncomfortable. They don't control situations through logic, they control them through reaction. If you react, they win. If you pause, they lose leverage. You have a choice. React emotionally or respond intentionally. Intentional people are harder to move. That's the key. Let's get practical. Next time someone pressures you emotionally, do not match their energy. Do not defend. Do not escalate. Slow down. Lower your voice. Shorten your words. Say things like, "I hear you. I've made my decision. We can talk when this is calmer." Then stop. Silence removes momentum. Pressure needs speed to work. When you slow down, pressure collapses. You don't need their permission. Another discipline. Separate emotion from instruction. Ask yourself one question. What action are they demanding, and is it justified? Not how they feel, not how loud they are, not how urgent it sounds, just the action. Most emotional pressure dissolves under scrutiny. That's the key. Let's address guilt. Guilt is one of the most powerful manipulation tools. It sounds soft, but it controls deeply. You're selfish. You don't care. If you loved me, you would. Those statements are not arguments, they are weapons. Pressure is not power. You do not need to prove your goodness by surrendering your boundaries. It's not about being heartless, it's about being disciplined. It's not about ignoring emotion, it's about refusing to be ruled by it. That's the key. Strong people can sit with discomfort. They can let others be upset. They can hold their position without attacking back. Weak people move just to relieve tension. You have a choice. Choose relief or choose respect. Respect lasts longer. You don't need their permission. Now listen carefully. When you stop responding to emotional pressure, something interesting happens. The drama increases at first. Why? Because manipulation escalates when it stops working. Stay steady. Do not explain. Do not argue. Do not negotiate. Let the storm burn itself out. Pressure without reaction has nowhere to land. That's the key. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotions. You are responsible for managing your actions. That distinction changes everything. It's not about control. It's about self-command. Pressure is not power. Remember this. The calmest person in the room holds the most authority. Not the loudest, not the angriest, not the most emotional. Calm signals confidence. Confidence signals strength. That's the key. Here's another practice. When faced with emotional pressure, delay your response. Say, "I'll think about it. We'll revisit this later. I need time." Urgency is a tactic. Time restores balance. You don't need their permission. Most bad decisions are made under emotional pressure. Most regrets come from rushed compliance. Slow down. Your pace is your power. That's the key. Let me remind you of the core truth. Emotion is information, not instruction. You can acknowledge how someone feels without obeying it. You can listen without surrendering. That's strength. It's not about being cold, it's about being grounded. Pressure is not power. Say it until it sticks. Pressure is not power. You have a choice. Fold under emotional weight or stand steady and let emotions pass. Stand steady. Because when you stop mistaking pressure for authority, you reclaimed your ground. You don't need their permission. You've learned to see through emotional force. You've learned to stay calm when others push. Now it's time to master the next layer, because calm is not passive. Calm is strategic.
Stillness is not weakness. Stillness is strength. Most people move to relieve discomfort, not because movement is required. They shift, they speak, they react. Not because it's necessary, but because silence feels heavy. That's the trap. Movement feels productive. Reaction feels powerful. But most of the time, it's just nervous energy looking for relief. You have a choice. Move to feel better, or stay still to become stronger. That's the key. Stillness exposes insecurity. That's why people avoid it. When you stop moving, you feel everything. The tension, the pressure, the urge to explain, justify, or escape. Weak people run from that feeling. Strong people stay. Still people are hard to control. Say it again. Still people are hard to control. Because control requires reaction. Control requires motion. Control requires emotional leakage. Stillness cuts the supply. That's the key. Look at negotiations. The person who speaks first usually loses ground. Not because their words are wrong, but because silence creates leverage. One person talks, the other listens. The talker fills space. The listener holds position. And suddenly, the dynamic shifts. Silence creates pressure. Pressure reveals weakness. Still people are hard to control. You don't need their permission. Most people misunderstand stillness. They think it means passivity. It doesn't. Stillness is not freezing. Stillness is restraint. It's the discipline of not moving prematurely. It's not about hesitation, it's about timing. That's the key. Let's get honest. How many times have you spoken just to break the silence? How many times have you agreed just to stop tension? How many times have you acted just to feel relief? That wasn't strength. That was discomfort avoidance. You have a choice. Let discomfort pass, or let it control you. Stillness trains power. That's the key. Here's what stillness actually does. It forces others to reveal more. It exposes emotional agendas. It creates space for clarity. When you stop moving, others start talking. They explain. They negotiate. They show their hand. And you gain information without giving anything away. Still people are hard to control. Let's talk about real-world application. Next time someone pressures you for an answer, pause. Count to 5 internally. Breathe. Say nothing. Watch what happens. Most people will keep talking. They will soften. They will backtrack. Because silence makes people nervous. That nervousness is not your problem. You don't need their permission. Stillness also applies to decisions. Most bad decisions are rushed decisions. Decisions made to end discomfort, not to create results. Urgency is rarely real. It's often emotional. Stillness gives you time. Time restores authority. That's the key. Let's address fear. Stillness feels risky because you're not controlling the moment, you're letting it unfold. But control through force is fragile. Control through presence is durable. When you don't rush, you signal confidence. Confident people are trusted. Still people are hard to control. Now let's talk about the body. Stillness starts physically. If your body fidgets, your mind follows. If your breath is shallow, your thoughts scatter. So train stillness physically. Stand still when you're challenged. Sit upright. Slow your breathing. Your body leads your mind. It's not about calmness, it's about discipline. That's the key. Another practice. When criticized, do not respond immediately. Let the words land. Let the silence stretch. Respond only when you choose, not when you're pushed. Reaction is automatic. Response is intentional. You have a choice. Be automatic or be deliberate. Deliberate people lead themselves. Still people are hard to control. Let's look at conflict. Most conflicts escalate because both sides move at once. Words collide, egos clash. But when one person stays still, the energy drops. Stillness de-escalates without surrender. It doesn't mean agreement, it means control. You don't need their permission. This is not about dominance, it's about grounding. It's not about winning, it's about not losing yourself. That's the key. Stillness also protects your energy. Every reaction costs energy. Every unnecessary move drains focus. When you stay still, you conserve strength. Strong people don't waste energy on noise. They wait, they observe, they choose. Still people are hard to control. Here's a hard truth. People who rush are easy to manipulate. People who pause are difficult to deceive. Scammers rush you. Bullies rush you. Manipulators rush you. Stillness breaks the spell. You have a choice. Move fast to please, or move slowly to lead. That's the key. Let's bring it home. Stillness is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows through use. Start small. Pause before answering. Sit through silence. Delay decisions. Each pause builds authority. You don't need their permission. Remember this. The world pushes. The strong don't push back. They anchor. Anchors don't move with waves. They hold ground. Still people are hard to control. You've learned to stop explaining. You've learned to ignore emotional pressure. Now you've learned to stay still under force. And this changes everything. Because once you master stillness, you can set boundaries without words.
Boundaries are not speeches. Boundaries are not warnings. Boundaries are not emotional announcements. Boundaries are actions. The strongest boundaries are enforced without explanation, without drama, and without noise. No announcement required. Most people get boundaries wrong. They think boundaries are something you say. They give long explanations. They issue emotional ultimatums. They rehearse speeches in their head. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Because boundaries don't work when they are loud. They work when they are consistent. You have a choice. Talk about boundaries or live them. That's the key. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you have to keep explaining your boundary, you don't have one. You have a preference. And preferences get negotiated. Boundaries do not. No announcement required. Look at how strong people operate. They don't threaten. They don't warn. They don't convince. They change behavior. Someone disrespects them. They reduce access.
Someone crosses a line, they step away. Someone keeps pushing, they disengage. No speech, no argument, no emotional charge, just action. You don't need their permission. Let's talk about why people overtalk boundaries. Fear. Fear of being disliked. Fear of conflict. Fear of being seen as too much. So they soften. They explain. They compromise themselves. It's not about kindness. It's about discomfort avoidance. It's not about communication. It's about discipline. That's the key. Here's a real example. Two people argue. One keeps crossing the same line. The weak response is confrontation without consequence. More talking, more explaining, more emotion. The strong response is quiet distance. You stop engaging. You stop responding immediately. You stop giving access. And suddenly the behavior changes. Or the person leaves. Both outcomes are wins. No announcement required. Boundaries reveal truth. People who respect you adjust. People who benefit from disrespect resist. That information is priceless. You have a choice. Argue with resistance, or observe it. That's the key. Let's be very clear. Walking away is not avoidance. Walking away is enforcement. Silence is not weakness. Silence is consequence. Most people think they need the perfect words. They don't. They need the courage to act once and repeat. That's discipline. No announcement required. Here's another hard truth. If someone only respects you after a long explanation, they don't respect you. They're managing you. Strong boundaries remove management games. You don't negotiate self-respect. You don't need their permission. Let's get practical. Next time a boundary is crossed, do less. Say one sentence or none. Then change your behavior. Leave the room. End the conversation. Delay the response. Withdraw access. That's the boundary. Anything else is noise. That's the key. Boundaries are expensive. They cost you comfort. They cost you approval. They cost you people. But what they give back is power. Power over your time. Power over your energy. Power over your self-respect. You have a choice. Pay the price now, or pay it daily in resentment. No announcement required. People test boundaries to see what happens. If nothing happens, the test becomes a habit. Action teaches faster than words ever will. That's the key. Let's talk about emotional manipulation. Manipulators hate silent boundaries. Why? Because there's nothing to argue with, nothing to twist, nothing to guilt. Silence starves manipulation. You don't need their permission. This doesn't mean you become cold or cruel. It means you become consistent. Consistency builds credibility. Say less, do more. No announcement required. Another practice. Stop explaining why you need space. Space doesn't require justification. Time doesn't require defense. Distance doesn't require approval. Your life does not require a footnote. Boundaries do not. That's the key. Notice this. When you stop announcing boundaries, people feel the shift immediately. Not because you said something new, but because you did something different. Behavior is louder than language. Still people are hard to control, and silent boundaries are hard to cross. You have a choice. Be loud and ignored, or be quiet and respected. You don't need their permission. This chapter connects everything you've learned so far. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped obeying emotional pressure. You learned to stay still. Now you enforce your ground without noise.
and this prepares you for the next level. Because once your boundaries are silent and firm, you no longer need agreement.
Consensus is comfortable. Consensus feels safe. Consensus feels like protection. And that's exactly why it keeps people small. Waiting for agreement keeps you stuck. Waiting for validation keeps you dependent. Waiting for consensus keeps you weak. You don't need consensus to be correct. Say it again. You don't need consensus to be correct. Agreement is optional. Direction is not. That's the key. Most people delay action because they're waiting for a signal, a nod, an approval, a green light from the crowd. They ask opinions, they poll reactions, they test the emotional temperature, and in doing so, they give their authority away. You have a choice. Move with clarity or wait for comfort. Comfort never builds anything meaningful. That's the key. Look at history. Every meaningful breakthrough was initially unpopular. Every innovator was misunderstood. Every loner was doubted. They weren't wrong. They were early. Consensus came later, after results. Direction always comes before agreement. Agreement is optional. Direction is not. You don't need their permission. Most people don't realize this. Groups don't create vision. Individuals do. Groups refine. Groups execute. Groups follow. But vision is solitary. Waiting for consensus before acting is like asking permission to breathe. It's not about humility. It's about fear. It's not about collaboration. It's about hesitation. That's the key. Let's bring this into real life. You have an idea, a boundary, a decision. You explain it to 10 people. 5 don't get it. 3 are unsure. 2 support you. And suddenly you hesitate. Why? Because uncertainty feels dangerous. But uncertainty is not a stop sign. It's a test. You have a choice. Trust your direction or surrender it to group comfort. You don't need their permission. Here's a hard truth. Most people judge ideas based on familiarity, not accuracy. If it challenges their habits, they resist. If it disrupts their comfort, they criticize. That doesn't make them right. It makes them human. Agreement is optional. Direction is not. That's the key. Let's talk about leaders. Strong leaders make decisions before consensus exists. They take responsibility for the outcome. Weak leaders hide behind agreement. They wait until it's safe. Safety doesn't lead. Courage does. You have a choice. Lead your life or manage reactions. That's the key. Here's a discipline to adopt. Stop asking people who are not living your life for permission to direct it. Opinions are cheap. Consequences are not. Only you pay the price of indecision. You don't need their permission. Another discipline. When you know your direction, stop selling it. State it once, then move. If people follow, good. If they don't, continue. Results speak louder than explanations. Agreement is optional. Direction is not. Let's talk about loneliness. Yes, moving without consensus can feel isolating. But isolation is temporary. Regret is permanent. Most people choose company over clarity and then wonder why they feel lost. Clarity comes from action, not from agreement. That's the key. Look at the innovators you admire. They weren't surrounded by applause at the beginning. They were surrounded by doubt. They kept going anyway, not because they were arrogant, but because they were aligned. Alignment beats approval.
You have a choice. Be aligned or be liked. You don't need their permission. This also applies to boundaries. You don't need everyone to agree that your boundary is reasonable. You need to enforce it. Trying to get consensus before enforcing boundaries turns self-respect into negotiation. No announcement required. That's the key. Let's talk about fear of being wrong. People hide behind consensus to avoid responsibility. If everyone agrees, I'm safe. But safety is not the goal. Growth is. And growth requires risk. You will make mistakes. That's part of leadership. Correcting course is strength. Waiting forever is weakness. Agreement is optional. Direction is not. Remember this. If you wait for everyone to understand you, you will never move. Movement creates understanding, not the other way around. You don't need their permission. Let's ground this. Before your next decision, ask yourself, do I need agreement or do I need courage? If you need courage, act. That's the key. You've learned to stop explaining. You've learned to ignore pressure. You've learned to stay still. You've learned to enforce silent boundaries. Now you're learning to move without agreement. This is how people reclaim authority over their lives. And now comes the next challenge. Because once you move without agreement, discomfort will follow.
Discomfort is not a problem. Discomfort is a signal. Discomfort is proof that you're holding your ground. Most people avoid discomfort at all costs. They move, they explain, they appease, they compromise themselves to make others comfortable. And that's why they remain weak. You have a choice. You can chase comfort or you can embrace discomfort. That's the key. Comfort weakens resolve. Let that sink in. Every time you bend to avoid tension, you train yourself to fold. Every time you seek approval instead of truth, you reinforce dependency. Every time you compromise to ease emotions, you undermine your power. Holding your ground will make others uncomfortable, and that's the point. It's not about hurting people. It's about protecting yourself. It's not about being mean. It's about being disciplined. That's the key. Think about it. When you choose integrity over approval, people may react. They may question you. They may try to manipulate or guilt you. They may push back. That discomfort, it's temporary. Your self-respect, that lasts forever. You have a choice. Appease for comfort or endure discomfort for strength. Let's make this real. Imagine a situation where someone pressures you to say yes. Maybe it's a project at work. Maybe it's a request from a friend. Maybe it's an expectation from a family member. Your instinct is to say yes. Why? Because disagreement feels uncomfortable. Stop. Pause. Ask yourself, is this in alignment with my values, my boundaries, my direction? If the answer is no, you say no. You hold your ground, and yes, discomfort will arise. Comfort weakens resolve. You don't need their permission. Here's the reality. The more you value comfort, the weaker your boundaries become. The more you fear tension, the less authority you command. The more you avoid discomfort, the more others will push. Discomfort is inevitable for those who lead themselves, and it is non-negotiable. That's the key. Let's talk about relationships. When you enforce your boundaries, people may react emotionally. Some will challenge you, Some will criticize you. Some will withdraw or try to make you feel guilty. That's not a failure. That's a test. You have a choice. Compromise to avoid tension or hold firm to maintain self-respect. You don't need their permission. Here's the exercise. The next time someone tries to pressure you, observe the discomfort. Notice the tension rising in your chest. Notice the urge to explain, to justify, to appease. Then pause. Breathe. Stand firm. Discomfort will be present. Endure it. Let it flow through you. Do not react to it. Comfort weakens resolve. That's the key. Look at integrity. Integrity is costly. It requires discomfort. It demands you act according to your principles, not according to popular opinion. People who always choose comfort will eventually lose integrity. People who endure discomfort build unshakable character. You have a choice. Comfort or integrity. Temporary ease or lasting strength. You don't need their permission. Let's talk about work. Saying no to a project that misaligns with your values creates tension. Your boss may be unhappy. Colleagues may resent you. But saying yes when it violates your standards creates long-term weakness. Discomfort now is better than regret later. Discomfort is the currency of self-respect. You will feel fear. You will feel resistance. You will feel guilt. All of that is normal. All of that is temporary. All of that is proof you are holding your ground. That's the key. Here's a simple rule. Whenever you feel uncomfortable defending your values, it's a signal. A signal that you are stepping into growth. A signal that you are protecting your life, your energy, your boundaries. You have a choice. Shrink for comfort or grow through discomfort. You don't need their permission. Let's apply this to personal life. When you tell someone no, don't explain. When you enforce a boundary, don't justify. When you prioritize your integrity, expect tension. Because discomfort is the proof that your values matter. Discomfort is the test of your discipline. Discomfort is the measure of your strength. Comfort weakens resolve. You've learned this before. Explaining yourself weakens resolve. Reacting to pressure weakens resolve. Compromising for approval weakens resolve. Now you see it in full. Enduring discomfort strengthens it. That's the key. Remember, discomfort is temporary. Regret lasts forever. Weakness fades to irrelevance. Self-respect endures. You have a choice. Endure discomfort and grow. Seek comfort and diminish. You don't need their permission. Discomfort is the price of self-respect. Every boundary you hold, every decision you make, every no you enforce, it will hurt. It will feel awkward. It will provoke resistance. Good. That means it matters. Comfort weakens resolve. You have now learned to embrace tension. You have learned to endure temporary pain. You have learned to hold your ground without apology. That discipline leads directly to freedom. And that is preparation for the next lesson. Because once you accept discomfort as a necessary cost, you will never bend for approval again.
Some people only engage to extract control. They don't care about your needs, your boundaries, or your well-being. They only care about what they can take. No deal is better than a bad deal. Say it again. No deal is better than a bad deal. That's the key. Too many people negotiate endlessly with the wrong people.
They over-explain, they compromise, they bend backward, and in doing so, they teach others that weakness is available for exploitation. You have a choice: engage with integrity or engage to your detriment. That's the key. Let's be honest. Some relationships, some workplaces, some partnerships are toxic by design. Not every person is aligned with your growth. Not every request deserves a yes. Not every conversation deserves negotiation. When you negotiate with someone who profits from your weakness, you lose twice. First, you lose energy. Second, you reinforce their power over you. You don't need their permission. Here's how it works in real life. A coworker pushes for your time constantly. A family member pressures you emotionally. A partner tests your boundaries repeatedly. You feel compelled to explain, justify, or adjust. You give concessions. You sacrifice your standards. And they get what they wanted. No deal is better than a bad deal. That's the key. Strong people recognize extraction attempts immediately. They spot manipulation. They see when a person is trying to control through pressure, guilt, or chaos, and they don't respond. Silence, stillness, and non-engagement are more powerful than words. Every negotiation that isn't mutual strengthens exploitation. You have a choice: respond and lose, or hold your ground and win. You don't need their permission. Here's the hard truth. People who thrive on exploiting weakness will escalate initially. They will push harder. They will provoke discomfort. They will test your limits. That's their strategy. Your strategy is different. You don't bend. You don't explain endlessly. You don't justify. You enforce your boundaries with consistent action. No deal is better than a bad deal. You have a choice: give them access to manipulate, or withdraw and maintain authority. That's the key. Let's apply this to business. Some clients, some partners, some negotiations are never going to be fair. They will extract maximum value while giving minimum respect. They will test your patience. They will make unreasonable demands. The weak react. They over-apologize. They offer concessions just to get approval. Strong people recognize the imbalance. They remove themselves. They stop negotiating. They refuse to be exploited. You don't need their permission. Another example: personal relationships. Some people thrive on emotional leverage. They test your boundaries to see how far they can go. They pressure you with guilt, anger, or silent resentment. The easy response is to negotiate endlessly. The tough response is to disengage, to stop giving energy, to let them collapse under the weight of their own tactics. No deal is better than a bad deal. That's the key. Let's make this a practical discipline. Whenever someone pressures you excessively, ask, am I engaging for my benefit or theirs? If it's for their benefit, stop, end the conversation, walk away, remove access. Silence is the ultimate response. You have a choice: participate in exploitation or withdraw with dignity. You don't need their permission. Now let's talk about fear. The fear of loss drives most weak negotiations. Fear of missing opportunities, fear of rejection, fear of conflict. Strong people face that fear head-on. They understand that losing a toxic negotiation is actually winning. They conserve their energy. They protect their integrity. No deal is better than a bad deal. That's the key. Here's the behavior that transforms everything. Stop explaining your position to people who have already made it clear that they will not respect it. Stop offering concessions to those who profit from your discomfort. Stop justifying boundaries that others will challenge regardless. Action enforces boundaries. Silence preserves authority. Withdrawal dismantles manipulation. You have a choice: react and feed their control, or act deliberately and reclaim your power. You don't need their permission. Let's address one more scenario: social circles. Some friends, acquaintances, or groups exist to extract attention, energy, or validation. They provoke you, they criticize you, they manipulate you into reacting.
Do not negotiate, do not explain, do not appease. No deal is better than a bad deal. The moment you stop negotiating with them, the dynamic changes. They can no longer extract energy. They cannot control your life. They must adapt or fade away. That's the key. Remember, boundaries are silent. Stillness is strength. Discomfort is the price of self-respect. And stopping negotiation with people who gain from your weakness is the ultimate expression of those principles. You have a choice. Give them control or reclaim your authority. You don't need their permission. Let's bring it full circle. Negotiating endlessly with those who exploit you weakens your power. It teaches them how to push. It trains you to bend. It diminishes your clarity. Stop. Withdraw. Act deliberately. Preserve yourself. No deal is better than a bad deal. You have learned to stop explaining yourself. You have learned to resist emotional pressure. You have learned stillness. You have learned to enforce boundaries. And now you will stop negotiating with those who profit from weakness. This is not passive. This is not avoidance. This is power in action. And now you are prepared for the next principle. Because once you stop negotiating with exploiters, you free yourself to lead without distraction.
Power games exist to provoke reaction. They thrive on emotion. They feed on response. Without a reaction, they collapse. No fuel, no fire. Say it again. No fuel, no fire. That's the key. Most people fall into power games unconsciously. They argue, explain, defend, and negotiate. They give energy to manipulation, and in doing so, they hand control away. You have a choice: react and empower, or remain silent and regain control. That's the key. Let's define a power game. A power game is any attempt by another person to make you act according to their desires. It can be subtle or overt. It can be emotional, verbal, or strategic. Its purpose is simple: get you to react. When you react, they win. When you pause, they lose. No fuel, no fire. Consider passive-aggressive behavior. Someone makes a comment designed to provoke, or they withhold information, or they spread insinuations. Most people respond immediately. They explain, they defend, they justify, and the fire grows. The strong do the opposite. They pause, they observe, they do not feed the fire. No fuel, no fire. That's the key. Silence is not weakness. Silence is discipline. Silence is power. You have a choice: feed manipulation or starve it. You don't need their permission. Here's the truth. Power games exist in all spheres: work, family, friendships, and even romantic relationships. They are a test of your boundaries, your self-control, and your focus. The moment you respond automatically, you teach others that your energy is available for exploitation. Stop. Observe. Do not react. No fuel, no fire. Let's apply this. At work, a colleague takes subtle digs at your competence. They provoke you in meetings. They test your patience with emails designed to elicit frustration. The weak respond. They defend their ego. They argue their point. The strong remain silent. They assess the situation. They take action only when it aligns with principle, not emotion. No fuel, no fire. That's the key. Power games also exist in personal life. Friends or family may pressure you with guilt or obligation. They may provoke emotional responses. They may create tension to see how far they can push. Most people react. They explain. They negotiate. Strong people pause. They withhold energy. They wait for clarity. No fuel, no fire. Silence disrupts manipulation.
It removes momentum. It exposes true intentions. You have a choice. React to tension and feed the game, or remain silent and collapse the game. You don't need their permission. Here's a practical method. Step 1. Recognize the game. Step 2. Notice your urge to react. Step 3. Pause. Step 4. Respond deliberately or not at all. Each pause trains discipline. Each pause removes power from others. Each pause preserves your energy. No fuel, no fire. Let's discuss the psychological principle. Power games exist because of supply and demand. Your reaction is the fuel. Your silence is withdrawal. Withdraw fuel and the game ends. The manipulator loses control. Your authority grows. You have a choice. Supply energy to chaos or withdraw and regain control. That's the key. Consider another example. Social manipulation. Someone spreads rumors to provoke your anger. Someone uses sarcasm to incite defensiveness. Someone plays mind games to see if they can dominate you. The weak respond instantly. The strong step back. They do not explain. They do not justify. They do not defend. No fuel, no fire. This principle is transformative. Silence is active. It is strategic. It requires discipline. It requires awareness. It is not avoidance. It is mastery. You have a choice. React unconsciously and empower games, or respond with awareness and collapse them. You don't need their permission. Another important point, timing matters. Some games appear urgent. Some appear critical. Some appear personal. The moment you pause, the perceived urgency diminishes. The perceived threat dissolves. The manipulator loses leverage. No fuel, no fire. That's the key. Here's a simple test. Next time you feel provoked, notice the urge to speak. Notice the desire to defend. Notice the compulsion to justify. Then stop. Breathe. Hold your energy. No fuel, no fire. Observe what happens. Most provocateurs escalate at first. They push harder. They try new tactics. Do not respond. Do not react. Do not explain. Eventually, the game collapses. Control returns to you. You have a choice. Feed the fire or remove the fuel. You don't need their permission. Let's address one more aspect. Silence preserves mental clarity. Reacting feeds emotional chaos. Silence allows assessment, strategy, and decisive action. No fuel, no fire. The stronger you become, the less you engage with manipulative tactics. You act deliberately. You move with purpose. You conserve your energy for what matters. You have a choice. Scatter energy on games or hold energy for life. That's the key. Remember, power games require your participation to survive. Withhold your reaction. Withhold your energy. Withhold your words. No fuel, no fire. You've learned to stop explaining unnecessarily. Resist emotional pressure. Stay still. Enforce boundaries. Refuse manipulation. Now you learn to withhold energy from games. Silence is strength. Stillness is strategy. Withholding fuel collapses control. No fuel, no fire.
Every interaction is a lesson. Every reaction is an example. Every concession is instruction. What you allow becomes law. Say it again. What you allow becomes law. That's the key. Most people do not realize this. Every time you fold, you set a precedent. Every time you compromise unnecessarily, you teach others how far they can push.
Every time you allow disrespect, you normalize it. You have a choice. Teach respect or allow exploitation. That's the key. Let's define the principle. You are constantly teaching, not with words alone, but with action, with behavior, with boundaries, with your willingness to endure or concede. If you tolerate bad behavior, it becomes acceptable. If you react to pressure, it becomes normal. If you compromise your standards, it becomes expected. What you allow becomes law. You don't need their permission. Here's the uncomfortable truth. People will push boundaries until someone enforces them. They will test limits repeatedly. They will probe, provoke, and challenge, and they will follow the pattern you set. That's why leadership starts with personal authority, not over others, not with speeches, but with clear, consistent behavior. You have a choice. Be clear and firm, or be negotiated into weakness. That's the key. Think about work. A colleague repeatedly interrupts you. A client ignores deadlines. A manager expects overcommitment. If you fold each time, they learn your limits and exploit them. If you respond assertively, they learn respect, and your time becomes sacred. What you allow becomes law. Now, personal life. Friends who cancel last minute, family members who pressure your decisions, partners who test your patience. Every time you accommodate out of guilt or fear, you teach them your boundaries are optional. Every time you enforce limits, you teach them your standards are non-negotiable. You have a choice. Empower bad habits or teach accountability. You don't need their permission. Here's another example. Someone borrows money and doesn't return it on time. Someone repeatedly asks for favors without reciprocation. Someone manipulates emotions for control. If you react passively or make excuses, you reinforce exploitation. If you act decisively, say no, enforce repayment, or withdraw access, you teach responsibility. What you allow becomes law. That's the key. Discipline is required. It's not about anger, it's not about aggression, it's about consistency. People do not respect inconsistency, they respect repeated action. They respect behavior aligned with values. You have a choice. React inconsistently and teach chaos. React consistently and teach respect. You don't need their permission. Here's a practical method. Step 1. Identify your non-negotiables. Step 2. Observe how people respond when they challenge them. Step 3. Act according to principle. Every time you respond in alignment with your standards, you reinforce respect. Every time you compromise, you teach disrespect. What you allow becomes law. Let's talk about temptation. The temptation to appease, explain, or compromise is constant. The fear of conflict or loss is real. The desire for approval is strong. Discipline is choosing principle over comfort. Discipline is choosing clarity over negotiation. Discipline is choosing long-term authority over short-term ease. You have a choice. Teach strength or teach weakness. You don't need their permission. Another point. Teaching is not just about reaction, it's about anticipation, it's about proactivity, it's about setting clear expectations before the game starts. Communicate boundaries, communicate standards, communicate consequences. Not with long speeches, but with consistent action, with behavior that reflects your values. What you allow becomes law. Here's a real-world behavioral instruction. If someone consistently crosses a line, stop accommodating. Enforce the consequence. Withdraw access if needed. Observe the response. Repeat consistently. Consistency trains respect faster than confrontation. You have a choice. Train respect or enable chaos. That's the key. Now the bigger picture. You are designing your environment. Every interaction is a building block. Every concession is a blueprint. Do you want your life structured on compromise and exploitation, or do you want your life structured on respect, accountability, and authority? What you allow becomes law. You don't need their permission. Let's conclude with a mindset shift. Stop thinking you can change people with explanation or emotion. Change comes from demonstration. Respect comes from consistent enforcement. Boundaries teach behavior. Your life will reflect what you consistently allow. You have a choice. Allow weak behavior and watch it grow. Enforce your standards and watch respect grow. That's the key. Remember, you stopped explaining yourself. You resisted emotional pressure. You held stillness and boundaries. You refused manipulation. You withheld energy from power games. Now you take full control over what people learn from you.
Calm is often mistaken for weakness. People confuse silence with passivity. They see stillness and assume surrender. They are wrong. Calm controls the room. Say it again. Calm controls the room. That's the key. Most people react emotionally under pressure. They argue, yell, panic, or over-explain. They amplify the chaos instead of containing it. You have a choice. React with emotion and lose control, or maintain calm and command authority. That's the key. Let's define what calm really is. Calm is not avoidance. Calm is not indifference. Calm is mastery. It is dominance without noise. It is power expressed quietly. It is influence exerted without agitation. Calm controls the room. You don't need their permission. Here's the truth. In moments of crisis, the emotional leader amplifies fear. The calm leader reduces tension. Calm is often mistaken for weakness. People confuse silence with passivity. They see stillness and assume surrender. They are wrong. Calm controls the room. Say it again. Calm controls the room. That's the key. Most people react emotionally under pressure. They argue, yell, panic, or over-explain. They amplify the chaos instead of containing it. You have a choice. React with emotion and lose control, or maintain calm and command authority. That's the key. Let's define what calm really is. Calm is not avoidance. Calm is not indifference. Calm is mastery. It is dominance without noise. It is power expressed quietly. It is influence exerted without agitation. Calm controls the room. You don't need their permission. Here's the truth. In moments of crisis, the emotional leader amplifies fear. The calm leader reduces tension. The emotional leader reacts impulsively. The calm leader decides deliberately. Emotions are contagious. Calm is contagious too, but it spreads stability, not chaos. You have a choice. Spread panic or spread presence. That's the key. Consider leadership in the workplace. A crisis arises. Mistakes happen. Deadlines are missed. The reactive manager yells. They micromanage. They blame others. The calm manager pauses. They assess the facts. They give clear direction. They take responsibility. Calm is authority. Calm is respect. Calm is dominance without aggression. Calm controls the room. This applies in personal life too.
Arguments, conflicts, and manipulations often seek to provoke reaction. Most people react immediately, shouting, explaining, defending. Most people escalate tension by feeding the emotional storm. Calm people observe. They respond selectively. They refuse to give their energy to the game. No fuel, no fire. Calm controls the room. That's the key. Let's talk about self-mastery. Calm requires internal discipline. It requires control over impulse, ego, and fear. It requires repetition, pausing before reacting, observing before responding, choosing principle over emotion. You have a choice. React impulsively and relinquish control. Maintain calm and consolidate authority. You don't need their permission. Here's a behavioral strategy. Step 1. Identify triggers. Step 2. Pause and breathe. Step 3. Observe the situation objectively. Step 4. Decide the response that aligns with principle. Step 5. Act deliberately. Every calm response builds respect. Every emotional reaction builds chaos. Calm controls the room. Let's apply this in high-stakes situations. During a negotiation, emotions rise. Opponents attempt provocation. Pressure intensifies. The reactive negotiator argues. They justify. They fold under emotion. The calm negotiator listens. They pause before responding. They ask questions, clarify positions, and act strategically. Calm wins leverage. Calm dictates tempo. Calm controls the room. You have a choice. Feed emotion and lose influence. Maintain calm and command respect. That's the key. Let's discuss personal conflict. Someone insults you or attacks your character. Most people respond with anger. Most people react immediately to defend their ego. Calm people observe. They consider their response. They respond proportionately, deliberately, and strategically. Calm neutralizes power plays. Calm preserves energy. Calm controls the room. You don't need their permission. Here's another point. Calm is also contagious. When you maintain composure, others follow. Tension subsides. Disputes resolve faster. Authority spreads quietly but powerfully. No reaction is stronger than a weak reaction. Calm is dominance without noise. You have a choice. Be loud and reactive, or be calm and authoritative. That's the key. Consider crises in life, financial stress, relationship breakdowns, emergencies. Those who panic amplify suffering. Those who stay calm make better decisions. They preserve their energy. They protect their boundaries. They guide outcomes effectively. Calm is strength. Calm is strategy. Calm controls the room. Let's address fear. Many mistake calm for fearlessness. They think calm means no anxiety. It does not. Calm means controlling anxiety. Calm means acting despite it. Calm means mastering your internal state to influence the external world. You have a choice. Let fear dictate reaction, or let calm dictate action. You don't need their permission. Here's the transformation. When you master calm, power games lose effect. Negotiations favor your control. Conflicts resolve in your presence. Influence spreads quietly but undeniably. Calm is not weakness. Calm is authority. Calm is power without aggression. Calm controls the room. Now bring it all together. You have learned to stop explaining yourself, resist emotional pressure, hold stillness and boundaries, avoid manipulation, stop power games, teach respect through consistency. Now you master your internal state. Calm is the final layer of authority. It turns discipline into influence. It transforms reaction into strategy. No fuel, no fire. Calm controls the room.
Most people are predictable. Most people react the same way every time. Their emotions, impulses, and habits make them easy to read. Predictable people are easy to move. Say it again. Predictable people are easy to move. That's the key. Every reaction communicates more than you realize. Every impulse reveals strategy. Every emotional response signals weakness or strength. You have a choice. React automatically and become readable, or respond with discipline and become unpredictable. That's the key. Let's break it down. Reactivity is a trap. It makes you readable. It makes you controllable. It invites manipulation. A colleague triggers your anger repeatedly. A partner pushes emotional buttons. A competitor exploits your predictable response. Most people react instantly. They argue, they defend, they fold under pressure. Predictable people are easy to move. Discipline breaks the pattern. Discipline allows observation. Discipline creates unpredictability. It turns manipulation into opportunity. You don't need their permission. Here's a real-world example. In negotiations, an opponent tests your patience. They provoke to see if you will overcommit or concede. Reactive negotiators give away leverage. Disciplined negotiators pause, assess, and act deliberately. Predictable people are easy to move. This principle applies to every domain of life. Friends, family, coworkers, and partners all test boundaries. They push to see how you will respond. They measure your reactions, noting patterns and vulnerabilities. When you react predictably, you become readable. When you react with discipline, you create uncertainty and power. You have a choice. Feed predictability or cultivate discipline. That's the key. Let's examine emotional triggers. Anger, fear, pride, and shame are all tools in manipulation. Reactive people fall prey to these triggers constantly. They act impulsively. They make mistakes. They give away advantage. Disciplined people notice triggers. They acknowledge the feeling without yielding to it. They decide consciously whether a response is strategic or unnecessary. Predictable people are easy to move. Here's a practical step. Step 1. Identify your triggers. Step 2. Observe your instinctive reactions. Step 3. Pause. Step 4. Decide your response deliberately. Every disciplined response builds authority. Every impulsive reaction gives away power. You have a choice. Be readable and controllable, or be disciplined and unpredictable. You don't need their permission. Consider another example. Social dynamics. Someone tries to provoke jealousy. Someone attempts to manipulate guilt. Someone pressures you to conform. Reactive individuals fold or lash out. Their responses reinforce patterns and invite control. Disciplined individuals pause. They consider motives. They respond proportionally or not at all. Predictable people are easy to move. Disciplined people are hard to influence. That's the key.
Discipline is rare because it requires practice. It requires self-awareness, patience, and repeated restraint. It requires enduring discomfort without reacting immediately. Most people refuse this discipline. Most people prefer the illusion of quick resolution through reaction. Most people feed the system that manipulates them. You have a choice. Join the predictable majority or embrace discipline and reclaim control. You don't need their permission. Here's a behavioral instruction. Whenever you feel provoked, notice the instinctive response. Ask, is this reaction strategic? Does it serve my purpose? Does it give away power? If the answer is no, pause. If the answer is yes, act deliberately. Predictable people are easy to move. Disciplined people set their own course. That's the key. Now consider long-term benefits. Disciplined individuals become unreadable. They gain leverage in negotiations, relationships, and leadership. They control their emotional energy. They make decisions with clarity and intention. Reactive individuals sacrifice clarity. They expend energy on unproductive responses. They reveal weaknesses that others exploit. You have a choice. React immediately and feed predictability. Pause and respond with discipline and control. You don't need their permission. Another truth, discipline is freedom. Predictable reactions chain you to circumstance. Discipline liberates you from manipulation. Discipline lets you dictate outcomes rather than being swept along by them. Predictable people are easy to move. Disciplined people are unstoppable. That's the key. Let's apply it to conflict. Someone insults you. Someone challenges your authority. Someone threatens your status. Reactive response, immediate anger, rebuttal, or collapse. Disciplined response, pause, observe, evaluate, and act strategically. You control the situation. You control your energy. You control the outcome. Predictable people are easy to move. Disciplined people are rare, and that rarity is power. You have a choice. Be ordinary, predictable, and easy to manipulate, or be disciplined, unreadable, and in command of your life. You don't need their permission. Here's the transformation. When you embrace discipline, you resist emotional manipulation, you preserve mental clarity, you maintain authority, you make decisions from strength, not impulse. Predictable people are easy to move. Disciplined people create movement around them. That's the key. Remember your journey. You stopped explaining yourself. You resisted emotional pressure. You enforced boundaries. You avoided power games. You maintained calm under pressure. Now, discipline ensures you are unreadable. It ensures you are not controlled by others' expectations or provocations. It turns resistance into opportunity. It turns observation into authority. Predictable people are easy to move. Disciplined people are unstoppable. You have a choice. React and remain predictable. Master discipline and become rare. You don't need their permission.
Most people confuse availability with obligation. They believe that being reachable means they must respond. They assume that saying yes is a moral requirement. It's not. Access is earned. Say it again. Access is earned. That's the key. Every time you are constantly available, you dilute your authority. Every time you over-explain, overcommit, or overextend, you teach others that your energy is limitless. Every time you prioritize everyone else's demands over your own, you reinforce dependence. You have a choice. Give away access freely and lose power, or withhold access strategically and gain authority. That's the key. Let's define the principle clearly. Access is not an obligation. Access is a privilege extended to those who respect your time, boundaries, and priorities. You decide who receives it, when, and under what conditions. Most people mistake politeness for duty.
They answer texts immediately. They respond to calls instantly. They allow anyone to walk into their day without consideration. Access is earned. You don't need their permission. Consider your energy as currency. Every interaction consumes it. Every obligation you accept drains it. Every unnecessary response diminishes focus. When you control access, you protect your energy. When you control access, you direct attention to what truly matters. When you control access, you reclaim authority over your life. You have a choice. Scatter your energy freely and remain reactive. Control access and remain proactive. That's the key. Here's a real-world example. In the workplace, constant availability does not earn respect, it earns expectation. A manager who answers every email immediately teaches dependence. A leader who responds selectively, prioritizes key issues, and sets boundaries earns authority. Access is earned. This applies to personal life as well. Friends, family, partners, they all test availability. They expect instant replies. They push for convenience. They assume you are always free. If you always comply, you lose power. If you set limits, you command respect. If you protect your time, you protect your life. You have a choice. Allow unlimited access and weaken authority. Limit access and strengthen presence. You don't need their permission. Let's talk about boundaries. Strong boundaries are not aggressive, they are deliberate. They are a clear statement: my energy is valuable, my time is sacred, my attention is finite. Access is earned. Here's a practical strategy. Step 1. Identify your non-negotiables. Step 2. Decide what and who deserves immediate access. Step 3. Set limits on all other requests. Step 4. Enforce these limits consistently. Each consistent boundary reinforces authority. Each uncontrolled boundary diminishes it. You have a choice. Scatter access freely and lose influence. Control access and gain authority. That's the key. Consider social media. Notifications ping endlessly. Messages arrive constantly. The demand for attention is relentless. Most people respond instantly. Most people feel compelled to engage. Most people react to the illusion of urgency. Disciplined people pause. They check selectively. They respond strategically. Access is earned. Here's another truth. Reducing access is not cruelty. It is self-respect. It is power preservation. It is strategic leverage. When you reduce availability, people notice. Some resist. Some complain. Some push back. That's expected. It is part of teaching people how to treat you. Consistency reinforces the lesson. You have a choice. React to resistance or enforce your boundaries. Enforce your boundaries and reclaim control. You don't need their permission. Now, consider your time. Time is finite. Energy is finite. Attention is finite. Every unnecessary interaction is a theft. Every unearned demand is a drain. Every instant response reinforces obligation over choice. Access is earned. Discipline in access multiplies effectiveness. It amplifies focus. It strengthens boundaries. It builds authority. You have a choice. Give access freely and weaken yourself. Grant access strategically and strengthen yourself. That's the key. Here's a practical behavioral guide. Set explicit limits on communication channels. Delay responses when appropriate to preserve energy. Prioritize interactions that align with goals. Withdraw access from those who exploit it repeatedly. Maintain consistency to reinforce the lesson. Access is earned. It is a principle, not a privilege. It is a tool of discipline. You have a choice. Scatter attention and become reactive. Control attention and become proactive. You don't need their permission. Remember the lessons you've mastered so far. You stopped explaining yourself. You resisted emotional pressure. You held stillness and boundaries. You avoided power games. You taught people how to treat you. You controlled your reactions. Now you protect your most valuable resource, your access. By doing so, you hold your ground completely. By doing so, you convert discipline into authority. By doing so, you reclaim control of your time, energy, and life. Access is earned. Discipline over access is non-negotiable. Your energy, your focus, your priorities, guard them fiercely. You have a choice. Give access freely and remain at the mercy of others, or enforce boundaries and hold your ground.
Holding your ground is not comfortable. It is not convenient. It is not easy. It will cost you people. Say it again. It will cost you people. That's the key. Not everyone will survive your growth. Not everyone will respect your boundaries. Not everyone will honor your discipline. You have a choice. Keep everyone and compromise your values, or hold your ground and let the wrong people go. That's the key. Let's define this principle clearly. When you hold your ground, you raise your standards. You become less tolerant of disrespect, manipulation, and exploitation. You refuse to compromise on your principles. Some people will be uncomfortable with your new boundaries. Some people will leave. Some people will try to pull you back into old patterns. Let them go. Say it again. Let them go. That's the key. Think about relationships. Friendships built on convenience, obligation, or compliance will struggle. They will resist your growth. They will demand old dynamics. They will complain or withdraw love to test your limits. If you bend, you lose authority and self-respect. If you hold firm, you may lose connection. You have a choice. Sacrifice yourself to keep them, or sacrifice the connection to preserve yourself. That's the key. Consider family dynamics. Family members can be resistant to change. They expect you to remain predictable. They may resent your growth. They may guilt you for setting new boundaries. Hold your ground. Their discomfort is not your failure. Their departure is not your defeat. Let them go. You don't need their permission. Think about colleagues and workplace relationships. Some peers rely on your compliance. Some leaders prefer you to stay reactive and accommodating. Some teams function on low accountability and high conformity. When you insist on discipline, integrity, and standards, friction will appear. Some will leave. Some will push back. Some will test your resolve. Hold your ground. Their resistance does not diminish your authority. Their departure is a natural consequence of your growth. You have a choice. Compromise and maintain familiarity, or hold firm and endure losses. That's the key. Here's a psychological truth. People are comfortable with who you were, not who you are becoming. Growth forces change. Change threatens their expectations. Not everyone can adapt. This is natural. This is expected. It is not personal. Let them go. You have a choice. Cling to the old to avoid discomfort, embrace the new, and endure the loss. You don't need their permission. Let's discuss a real-world example. An entrepreneur scales their business. Old friends criticize decisions. Some family members withdraw support. Some colleagues attempt to manipulate compliance. If the entrepreneur compromises to keep them, progress stalls. If they hold ground, relationships fracture, but growth accelerates. Opportunities expand. Discipline pays off. Let them go. That's the key. Here's how to navigate it. Step 1. Identify relationships built on convenience or control. Step 2. Enforce boundaries consistently. Step 3. Observe reactions without guilt. Step 4. Accept departures as a natural consequence. Step 5. Reinvest energy into those who respect growth and discipline. You have a choice.
Carry the weight of those unwilling to evolve, or release them and move forward. That's the key. Personal growth always has a social cost. The higher your standards, the fewer the people who can keep up. The stronger your discipline, the fewer the who will comply. Let them go. Your circle will shrink, but it will strengthen. Your relationships will deepen, but only with those who respect your principles. Your life will gain clarity, purpose, and focus. You have a choice. Remain surrounded by mediocrity or rise and let go of the rest. You don't need their permission. Consider emotional energy. Holding people who resist your growth drains focus. They consume attention, provoke reactions, and create friction. Holding your ground frees energy for growth, creativity, and progress. Let them go. Predictable reactions, constant compliance, and resistance to change are energy drains. Discipline in holding your ground preserves mental clarity and authority. This is not selfishness, it is necessary. You have a choice. Accommodate everyone and compromise yourself, or hold ground and preserve your power. That's the key. Now embrace the mindset shift. Holding your ground is a form of leadership. It is a declaration of self-respect. It is an act of courage. It is a demonstration that you will not compromise principle for comfort. Let them go. You don't need their permission. Here's the transformation. When you hold your ground, you release toxic relationships. You maintain discipline and clarity. You reinforce boundaries. You preserve energy for growth. Not everyone survives your rise. Not everyone can respect your evolution. Not everyone can match your discipline. And that's exactly as it should be. You have a choice. Cling and weaken, release and strengthen. Let them go. You've learned to stop explaining yourself, resist emotional pressure, hold stillness and boundaries, avoid power games, teach respect through action, control reactions, protect your access. Now you understand that growth has social costs. Now you accept that losing people is not failure. Now you embrace the freedom that comes from holding your ground no matter the loss. Let them go.
Most people mistake kindness for weakness. They assume polite behavior equals surrender. They believe respect requires agreement. It doesn't. Kind does not mean weak. Say it again. Kind does not mean weak. That's the key. You can be firm, disciplined, and uncompromising while remaining courteous. You can assert boundaries without hostility. You can refuse without guilt. You have a choice. Be aggressive to command respect, or be kind and disciplined to earn it. That's the key. Let's define the principle clearly. Kindness is a demonstration of strength, not fragility. Compliance is the absence of strength. Confusing the two leads to being exploited. Most people think that saying no politely requires a lengthy explanation. They over-justify, over-explain, and over-apologize. They dilute their authority. Kind does not mean weak. You don't need their permission. Consider real-world examples. A manager refuses an unreasonable request. They say, "I cannot approve this right now." No drama, no justification. Polite, firm, decisive. Contrast with someone who says, "I don't think I can approve this, but maybe if." They lose authority. They invite pushback. They teach people that compliance is negotiable. Kind does not mean weak. Another example, personal boundaries. A friend asks for a favor that stretches your limits. Compliant people say yes automatically. Disciplined people say no politely. "No, I cannot, but I hope it works out for you." Respect is maintained, energy is preserved, authority is reinforced. You have a choice. Compromise and surrender your position, refuse politely, and maintain control. That's the key. Let's examine social dynamics. People often mistake politeness for submission. They push boundaries when responses are timid. They exploit the absence of firm refusal.
Kind does not mean weak. Polite refusal communicates self-respect. Polite refusal reinforces discipline. You don't need their permission. Here's a practical step-by-step approach. Step 1, recognize the difference between kindness and compliance. Step 2, use firm, concise language for refusals. Step 3, avoid unnecessary justification. Step 4, maintain calm and courteous tone. Step 5, repeat consistently until the behavior is natural. Kind does not mean weak. Your boundaries are respected when consistently enforced. You have a choice. Let politeness be mistaken for compliance, or let kindness coexist with discipline and authority. That's the key. Now, consider emotional responses. Some people will react negatively to refusal. Some will guilt you. Some will attempt manipulation. Kind does not mean weak. Disciplined refusal protects your energy. Disciplined refusal maintains authority. You have a choice. React defensively and escalate conflict. Respond calmly, politely, and firmly. That's the key. Here's a behavioral example. A client demands last-minute work. Reactive compliance costs time and energy. Firm compliance with polite refusal sets boundaries. No, I cannot deliver this today. I can schedule it tomorrow. Respect is maintained. Authority is preserved. Kind does not mean weak. This principle applies everywhere: work, relationships, family, friendships. Kindness without surrender ensures you are respected. Compliance without kindness fosters resentment and exploitation. You have a choice. Confuse kindness with submission and weaken yourself. Separate them and gain power. That's the key. Another truth is that the world respects consistency. People test boundaries repeatedly. Politeness alone is not enough. Kindness with disciplined consistency is authoritative. You don't need their permission. Every time you assert yourself politely, you reinforce your position. Every time you over-explain, you dilute your authority. Every time you confuse kindness with compliance, you invite exploitation. Kind does not mean weak. You have a choice. Confuse the two and lose control. Separate them and master influence. That's the key. Consider personal growth. You will face situations where saying no is necessary. You will face people who misinterpret firmness as hostility. You will face criticism for refusing politely. Kind does not mean weak. It means strength guided by discipline. It means respect without surrender. You have a choice. Allow misinterpretation to dictate behavior, or act firmly with kindness and maintain control. That's the key. Here's your transformation. Assert boundaries with courtesy. Refuse requests firmly but politely. Avoid over-justifying your decisions. Teach others how to treat you without conflict. Kind does not mean weak. It is discipline in action. It is authority without aggression. You have a choice. Confuse kindness with compliance and lose influence. Separate them and hold your ground.
Everyone claims values. Everyone speaks of integrity, courage, and discipline. Few live them consistently. Declared values invite resistance. Say it again. Declared values invite resistance. That's the key. The moment you claim who you are, the world tests you. It will challenge your principles. It will pressure you to compromise. It will tempt you to react contrary to your discipline. You have a choice. Bend under pressure and expose weakness. Stand firm and reveal true strength. That's the key. Let's define this principle clearly. Words are cheap. Actions are expensive. Anyone can talk about courage. Few endure when it is demanded. Pressure reveals truth. Say it again. Pressure reveals truth. That's the key. Every situation that challenges your patience, your boundaries, or your principles is a test. It's designed to show whether your claims are real or performative. Your reaction under pressure determines your character. You have a choice. React automatically and prove inconsistency. Act with discipline and prove integrity. That's the key.
Consider real-world examples. A leader claims honesty is non-negotiable. When faced with corruption in their team, do they ignore it to maintain comfort or confront it despite pushback? Pressure reveals truth. A friend says loyalty is sacred. When betrayed, do they forgive blindly or enforce consequences? Pressure reveals truth. A professional claims excellence as a standard. When deadlines collapse, do they compromise quality to save face or hold the line and maintain discipline? Pressure reveals truth. You have a choice. Maintain consistency under discomfort or surrender to ease and compromise principle. That's the key. Let's examine human nature. Most people are faithful to principles only when convenient. They recite ideals but abandon them under scrutiny. They project strength publicly while yielding privately. Declared values invite resistance. Pressure exposes the gap. Discipline bridges it. You don't need their permission. Here's a practical approach. Step 1. Identify the values you claim. Step 2. Anticipate tests that will challenge those values. Step 3. Plan actions consistent with those values under stress. Step 4. Respond decisively when tested. Pressure reveals truth. Consistency demonstrates authenticity. Discipline enforces credibility. You have a choice. Claim values and ignore the test, or claim values and prove them under pressure. That's the key. Consider relationships. We say we are compassionate, loyal, or forgiving. We claim patience, empathy, and fairness. But the world will pressure these claims. A friend demands more than you can give. A partner violates an expectation. A colleague manipulates a situation. Your reaction shows what you truly value. Do you bend under the weight or stand firm, guided by your principles? Pressure reveals truth. You have a choice. Excuse failure under pressure or meet pressure with discipline. That's the key. Now consider professional life. You claim excellence, accountability, and resilience. Projects fail, teams resist, markets shift. Every claim is tested, every principle challenged. Your response determines credibility. Consistency earns respect. Compromise earns temporary comfort but long-term weakness. Pressure reveals truth. You have a choice. Protect appearance and weaken integrity, or maintain standards and strengthen authority. That's the key. Here's a behavioral strategy. Anticipate the pressures aligned with your claims. Role-play responses to challenges. Establish non-negotiable actions that reflect values. Enforce them consistently regardless of discomfort. Reflect on each test to reinforce discipline and learning. Pressure reveals truth. Discipline confirms authenticity. You have a choice. Ignore tests and invite failure. Face tests and demonstrate strength. That's the key. Another truth: people will resent your consistency. Declared values create friction. Integrity under stress makes others uncomfortable. Discipline challenges complacency. The world tests your claims precisely because it expects compromise. You have a choice. Concede to avoid discomfort, or stand firm to uphold principle. You don't need their permission. Every time you act contrary to pressure, you teach a lesson about your character, about your boundaries, about the seriousness of your claims. Pressure reveals truth. Discipline proves it. Authority grows with consistency. You have a choice. Bend, compromise, and show weakness, or hold firm, enforce your values, and show strength. That's the key. The transformation? When you claim values and live them under pressure, you build unshakable credibility. You gain respect that cannot be bought. You attract people and opportunities aligned with your discipline. You eliminate distractions that prey on inconsistency. Declared values invite resistance. Pressure reveals truth. Discipline confirms it. You have a choice. Hide behind claims and avoid tests, or live your principles and prove who you truly are.
Standing firm is often misunderstood. Many equate firmness with stubbornness. They believe being grounded requires inflexibility. It doesn't. Strong roots, flexible branches. Say it again. Strong roots, flexible branches. That's the key. Grounded does not mean rigid. It means intentional. It means unwavering in principle, but adaptable in approach. You have a choice. Be unyielding and break under pressure, or stand firm and bend where strategy requires. That's the key. Let's define this principle clearly. Rigidity is the enemy of progress. Stubbornness isolates. It alienates allies and blinds you to opportunity. Intentional firmness preserves integrity while allowing movement. It ensures your core values are unshakable. It allows your actions to remain effective. Strong roots, flexible branches. You have a choice. Anchor yourself in principle or anchor yourself in ego and resist all adaptation. That's the key. Consider real-world examples. A negotiator in business holds their core objectives. They refuse to compromise on value, but they adjust tactics, delivery, and timing. They bend without breaking. They win respect and results. Contrast with someone who refuses to shift at all. They alienate partners. They lose leverage. They collapse under pressure. Strong roots, flexible branches. You don't need their permission. Think about personal relationships. A leader of a household has core values: respect, honesty, responsibility. They refuse to compromise those values, yet they adapt communication style for clarity and understanding. Firm on principle, flexible in execution. Rigid leaders breed resentment. Flexible discipline fosters respect. You have a choice. Demand compliance in every detail and fracture relationships, or maintain principles and adapt the method to ensure cooperation. That's the key. Here's the standing firm is often misunderstood. Many equate firmness with stubbornness. They believe being grounded requires inflexibility. It doesn't. Strong roots, flexible branches. Say it again. Strong roots, flexible branches. That's the key. Grounded does not mean rigid. It means intentional. It means unwavering in principle, but adaptable in approach. You have a choice. Be unyielding and break under pressure, or stand firm and bend where strategy requires. That's the key. Let's define this principle clearly. Rigidity is the enemy of progress. Stubbornness isolates. It alienates allies and blinds you to opportunity. Intentional firmness preserves integrity while allowing movement. It ensures your core values are unshakable. It allows your actions to remain effective. Strong roots, flexible branches. You have a choice. Anchor yourself in principle or anchor yourself in ego and resist all adaptation. That's the key. Consider real-world examples. A negotiator in business holds their core objectives. They refuse to compromise on value, but they adjust tactics, delivery, and timing. They bend without breaking. They win respect and results. Contrast with someone who refuses to shift at all. They alienate partners. They lose leverage. They collapse under pressure. Strong roots, flexible branches. You don't need their permission. Think about personal relationships. A leader of a household has core values: respect, honesty, responsibility. They refuse to compromise those values, yet they adapt communication style for clarity and understanding. Firm on principle, flexible in execution. Rigid leaders breed resentment. Flexible discipline fosters respect. You have a choice.
demand compliance in every detail and fracture relationships, or maintain principles and adapt the method to ensure cooperation. That's the key. Here's the behavioral strategy. Step 1. Identify your non-negotiable principles. Step 2. Distinguish between values and methods. Step 3. Allow adjustment in methods while preserving values. Step 4. Test flexibility under pressure without sacrificing integrity. Step 5. Reflect on outcomes to improve strategic adaptability. Strong roots, flexible branches. Now consider psychological insight. Life will pressure you. People will test you. Opportunities will demand adjustment. Rigid grounding leads to conflict, stress, and failure. Intentional flexibility preserves power, clarity, and authority. You have a choice. React with rigidity and invite conflict. Respond with grounded adaptability and maintain authority. That's the key. Consider professional life. You claim discipline and integrity as your values. You refuse shortcuts and dishonesty. Yet circumstances shift. Deadlines change. Teams resist. Markets fluctuate. Rigid behavior stalls growth. Adaptable behavior leverages change without betraying principle. Strong roots, flexible branches. You don't need their permission. Here's a real-world example. A startup founder holds the core value, quality above all. A supplier proposes a cheaper, faster alternative. Rigid response, refuse without negotiation, risk conflict. Flexible response, negotiate terms to preserve quality while maintaining deadlines. Outcome, principle preserved, strategy adapted, respect earned. You have a choice. Anchor in ego and resist adjustment. Anchor in principle and adjust tactically. That's the key. Think about social influence. Rigid people are predictable. They bend neither for opportunity nor challenge. They are easy to bypass and control. Disciplined flexibility is strategic. It maintains authority. It creates leverage. It demonstrates intelligence and mastery. Strong roots, flexible branches. You have a choice. Be immovable and brittle, or be grounded and resilient. That's the key. Here's a practical approach. Clarify your non-negotiable principles. Define areas open to tactical adaptation. Practice deliberate flexibility in low-stakes scenarios. Gradually apply in high-stakes situations. Reinforce the distinction between principle and method in your mind and speech. Strong roots, flexible branches. Now consider psychological insight. Life will pressure you. People will test you. Opportunities will demand adjustment. Grounded rigidity leads to conflict, stress, and failure. Intentional flexibility preserves power, clarity, and authority. You have a choice. Bend egolessly to strategy, not principle. Stand firm and refuse compromise on core values. That's the key. Transformation. When you master standing firm without rigidity, your core principles remain intact. You navigate challenges with strategy. You maintain authority under pressure. You adapt without surrendering power. Strong roots, flexible branches. You have a choice. Resist all change and fracture under pressure. Hold ground and move strategically to overcome obstacles. That's the key. You've learned to stop explaining yourself, to resist pressure, to enforce boundaries, to protect access, to control reactions, to assert authority, to embody declared values, and now to stand firm without rigidity. Strong roots, flexible branches. Your power lies in discipline, strategy, and adaptability.
Conflict is often portrayed as inevitable. Drama surrounds it in stories, workplaces, and social media. But most conflicts don't need resolution. They need withdrawal. Participation is consent. Say it again. Participation is consent. That's the key. Conflict requires engagement to survive. The moment you stop reacting, it begins to fade. Silence, restraint, and calm are more powerful than any argument. You have a choice. React and fuel escalation, or step back and let the fire die. That's the key. Let's define this principle clearly. Conflict is energy. It lives because you feed it. Emotion, attention, and reaction are the fuel it consumes. Stop giving fuel, it collapses. You regain control. Participation is consent. You don't need their permission. Consider real-world examples. A colleague attacks you in a meeting. They raise voice, point fingers, attempt to provoke. Reactive behavior feeds the conflict. Calm acknowledgement or strategic silence starves it. The fire dies. Authority is preserved. Energy is saved. Participation is consent. Another example, family disagreements. A sibling or parent pushes emotional buttons. Immediate reaction often fuels escalation. Choosing silence or calm acknowledgement prevents drama from thriving. Participation is consent. Your reaction is your permission for continued tension. Your calm is a boundary that stops unnecessary conflict. You don't need their permission. Here's a mental framework. Every conflict has two components, provocation and reaction. Provocation exists externally. Reaction exists internally. You control reaction. When reaction ceases, provocation loses power. Participation is consent. Emotional detachment does not mean avoidance. It means control. It means exercising authority without confrontation. You have a choice. React and amplify chaos, or detach and neutralize tension. That's the key. Consider long-term implications. People respect those who maintain composure. They resent those who escalate over every slight. Authority grows when you withdraw from unnecessary battles. Energy accumulates when you conserve emotional fuel. Participation is consent. You have a choice. Feed the fire and remain consumed, or withdraw and reclaim influence and energy. That's the key. Behavioral steps for mastery. Recognize triggers early. Decide on the value of engagement. Step back emotionally before physically. Communicate boundaries calmly if necessary. Repeat consistently to reinforce your discipline. Participation is consent. Withdrawal is power. Discipline controls outcome. You have a choice. React impulsively and invite escalation, or act with calm authority and dissolve unnecessary conflict. That's the key. Transformation. When you stop feeding conflict, energy is preserved, authority is maintained, drama dissipates naturally, relationships stabilize, influence grows without aggression. Participation is consent. Your reaction is your choice. Your choice is your power. You have a choice. Feed conflict and weaken yourself. Withdraw strategically and strengthen your ground. That's the key. You've learned to stop explaining yourself, resist pressure, enforce boundaries, control reactions, protect access, assert authority, embody declared values, stand firm without rigidity, and now neutralize conflicts without surrender. Many people spend their lives chasing peace. They chase agreement, harmony, and approval. They avoid confrontation at all costs. That's not peace. Peace without self-respect is war inside. Say it again. Peace without self-respect is war inside. That's the key. Forced peace is submission. It drains energy. It erodes authority. It diminishes your power silently, gradually, relentlessly. You have a choice. Chase peace and lose ground. Hold your values and regain power. That's the key. Let's define this principle clearly. True peace is the byproduct of discipline. It is earned through boundaries, consistency, and integrity. It is not a compromise on who you are. Chasing peace externally while surrendering internally is a trap. You may get smiles, nods, and temporary calm, but inside, resentment builds. Your power drains. Peace without self-respect is war inside. You don't need their permission. Consider real-world examples. A manager avoids conflict to appear liked. They compromise standards. They let deadlines slip. They excuse poor performance. The team may enjoy temporary calm, but long-term, authority erodes. Decision-making power shifts to others. Peace without self-respect is war inside. A parent avoids disciplining a child to maintain harmony. The child grows confused about boundaries. The household loses structure and authority. Peace is superficial. Discipline maintains genuine calm. You have a choice. Pursue forced peace and lose control. Pursue disciplined peace and strengthen influence. That's the key. Here's a practical approach. Step 1. Identify areas where you compromise values for superficial calm. Step 2. Separate temporary comfort from long-term authority. Step 3. Stand firm on principle before seeking external peace. Step 4. Accept that initial discomfort is part of asserting power. Step 5. Watch as genuine calm emerges naturally without surrender. Peace without self-respect is war inside. You have a choice. Acquiesce to avoid conflict. Hold your ground to reclaim energy and authority. That's the key. Consider personal relationships. A partner demands compromises that violate your principles. You yield to avoid arguments. Temporary peace appears. Internal tension grows. Power drains. Stand firm. Set boundaries. Respect yourself first. Peace becomes genuine. Power returns. You don't need their permission. Think about professional life. A client insists on shortcuts or unethical practices. Many people give in to maintain harmony. They sacrifice standards, reputation, and future opportunity. True authority comes from disciplined refusal. Power returns when you enforce principles without fear. Temporary tension is the cost of long-term influence. Peace without self-respect is war inside. You have a choice. Surrender for comfort and lose authority. Enforce values and regain control. That's the key. Here's a behavioral strategy. Audit your compromises. Where are you giving in for temporary calm? Prioritize principles over appeasement. Prepare for initial resistance or discomfort. Respond with firmness, calm, and clarity. Observe how genuine calm emerges once submission ends. Peace without self-respect is war inside. Discipline restores balance. Boundaries reclaim authority. You have a choice. Keep chasing external peace at the cost of self-respect, or assert discipline and let true power flow naturally. That's the key. Emotional insight. Many fear conflict because they confuse it with destruction. Real conflict challenges values. It does not destroy them. Avoiding necessary conflict creates internal war, silent erosion, and unnoticed loss. Discipline allows you to confront challenges calmly. Authority is regained when you refuse to surrender your principles. Peace without self-respect is war inside. You have a choice. Run after comfort and weaken yourself. Stand firm and restore energy, confidence, and influence. That's the key. Transformation. When you stop chasing peace, your boundaries solidify. Your internal strength grows. Your decisions regain clarity. Authority returns naturally. Peace becomes a reward, not a concession. Peace without self-respect is war inside. Discipline is power. Your choice defines outcomes. You have a choice. Surrender to appeasement and shrink. Hold firm, enforce values, and expand influence.
Authority is silent. It doesn't shout. It doesn't plead. It doesn't justify itself. Your presence becomes the warning. Say it again. Your presence becomes the warning. That's the key. Consistency in holding your ground is how reputation is forged. People notice patterns more than words. They watch actions, not explanations. You have a choice. Yield once, and the message is unclear. Hold firm repeatedly, and boundaries are respected without debate. That's the key. Let's break this down. Reputation is built silently. Every time you refuse to bend under pressure, it adds to your authority. Every time you choose principle over convenience, it strengthens your influence. Your presence becomes the warning. You don't need their permission. Consider real-world examples. A leader consistently enforces deadlines and standards. Team members initially test limits. They push, they complain, they argue. But over time, testing stops. The leader's consistency communicates authority more powerfully than any speech. The team learns that compromise is futile. Respect is earned. Your presence becomes the warning. Another example, personal relationships. A person repeatedly maintains boundaries with friends or family. Some try to exploit flexibility. Some attempt manipulation. Consistent resistance transforms perception. People adjust expectations. Your behavior sets the standard for interaction. Your presence becomes the warning. Here's a principle you must internalize. It's not about intimidation. It's about discipline. It's not about loud demonstrations. It's about consistent enforcement. It's not about forcing respect. It's about earning it through action. Your presence becomes the warning. You have a choice. Let people walk over you once, and they try again. Stand firm repeatedly, and they stop testing you entirely. That's the key. Behavioral steps for mastery. Identify your core principles. Know what you will and will not bend on. Apply them consistently in every area of life, work, relationships, and personal goals. Resist the urge to justify yourself. Action speaks louder than explanation. Observe patterns. When you remain firm, people adjust naturally. Maintain consistency even when it's uncomfortable. This is how authority solidifies. Your presence becomes the warning. Consider professional life. A manager enforces project standards with consistency. Initial pushback occurs. But after weeks of unwavering application, the team stops testing limits. The manager doesn't argue. The manager doesn't plead. The manager simply acts consistently. Your presence becomes the warning. In personal life, consistency works the same way. A friend habitually disrespects boundaries. You enforce limits calmly and consistently. At first, tension rises. Repeated enforcement communicates clarity. The relationship adjusts. No further tests occur. Your presence becomes the warning. Let's examine the psychological mechanism. People seek patterns. They observe reactions. When reactions are predictable, behavior is altered. When reactions are disciplined, testing ceases. It's not about intimidation. It's about demonstration. It's not about anger. It's about consistency. It's not about control. It's about discipline. Your presence becomes the warning. You have a choice. Inconsistency allows chaos. Consistency builds silent authority. That's the key. Emotional intelligence is central. Holding your ground does not mean rigidity. It does not mean emotional detachment. It does not mean cruelty. It means clarity. It means integrity. It means measured, consistent application of principle. Your presence becomes the warning. You don't need their permission. Practical steps for transformation. Write down your non-negotiables. Review them regularly. Apply them daily in your interactions. Resist emotional reaction. Choose calculated response. Observe how authority builds naturally without speeches or threats. Your presence becomes the warning. Consistency breeds trust, even in conflict. People respect what they cannot manipulate. Your reputation grows silently through repeated demonstration of principles. You don't have to enforce it vocally. You don't have to justify it. Your presence becomes the warning. Final takeaway. When you hold your ground consistently, testing stops. Authority is respected. Influence expands. Boundaries solidify. Reputation precedes you, silently but powerfully. Your presence becomes the warning. You have a choice. Yield and invite further testing. Hold firm and communicate authority without words. That's the key. You've now learned.
This is the final principle, the ultimate lesson, the foundation beneath all others. Rooted, centered, unmoved. Say it again. Rooted, centered, unmoved. That's the key. Being unmovable is not about winning arguments. It's not about proving yourself. It's not about external validation. It's about stability. It's about alignment. It's about living from a place that cannot be shaken by circumstance, opinion, or emotion. You have a choice. React to every push or stand firm in inner discipline. That's the key. Let's define what being unmovable truly means. It means your value does not fluctuate based on others' approval. It means your decisions are anchored in principle, not emotion. It means your peace is generated from within, not granted externally. Rooted, centered, unmoved. You don't need their permission. Consider real-world examples. A seasoned negotiator remains calm under provocation. Opponents attempt manipulation, shouting, or intimidation. The negotiator does not flinch. Offers are assessed, not reacted to. Decisions remain deliberate. Power accumulates quietly. Rooted, centered, unmoved. Another example. A leader faces criticism from peers and subordinates alike. Pressure mounts. Opinions clash. Chaos surrounds them. Yet they remain grounded. Their strategy remains clear. Their authority is maintained. The team recognizes the stability beneath the noise. You have a choice. Surrender to pressure and drift, or stand aligned with principles and remain unmovable. That's the key. Behavioral steps for achieving unmovable stability. Identify your core values, the non-negotiables. Review them daily. Align your decisions with these values. Separate emotions from action. Respond deliberately. Accept discomfort as a signal of growth, not a threat. Observe internal alignment as your source of peace. Rooted, centered, unmoved. This principle applies to personal life. Friends or family may attempt guilt or coercion. You maintain your boundaries calmly and consistently. Pressure loses power. Respect is earned silently. Relationships adjust naturally to your stability. You don't need their permission. Psychologically, people are influenced by consistency. Predictable reactions rooted in principles signal strength. They cannot manipulate what does not bend. They cannot control what does not fluctuate. Rooted, centered, unmoved. You have a choice. Be reactive and unpredictable, or be disciplined and immovable. That's the key. Transformation requires repetition. When tempted to justify yourself, pause. When provoked, breathe and assess. When challenged, anchor in principle. When uncomfortable, recognize growth is occurring. Over time, internal alignment becomes instinctive. Rooted, centered,
unmoved. Your power grows quietly. Your presence communicates authority without words. Your life flows from principle, not permission. Your decisions become unshakable. You have a choice. Chase validation and you bend. Stand unmovable and you rise. That's the key. Example in professional life. A CEO faces shareholder pressure to compromise ethics for short-term profit. Many leaders react. Some panic. Some negotiate away integrity. An unmovable leader holds the line. Decisions reflect long-term vision. The company culture stabilizes. Authority and trust grow exponentially. Rooted, centered, unmoved. In personal development, unmovable stability transforms character. It turns fleeting courage into lasting discipline. It converts reactive fear into strategic calm. It replaces internal chaos with quiet confidence. You don't need their permission. Behavioral reinforcement. Visualize yourself as rooted like a tree, unaffected by passing storms. Repeat affirmations. I am aligned. I am disciplined. I am unshakable. Practice daily decisions with principle, not impulse. Accept discomfort is temporary. Alignment is permanent. Recognize that being unmovable is the ultimate freedom. Rooted, centered, unmoved. You have a choice. Let the world pull you in every direction, or stand firm and let the world adjust to your stability. That's the key. Remember everything you have learned. Stop explaining yourself. Resist emotional pressure. Enforce boundaries silently. Control your reactions. Protect access and energy. Assert authority without demand. Consistently embody your values. Neutralize unnecessary conflict. Reclaim power through self-respect. Solidify your reputation through unwavering consistency. And now, anchor all of it in unshakable, immovable discipline. Rooted, centered, unmoved. The final transformation. Life tests all who stand firm. Pressure comes, challenges arise, people push. The difference between collapse and command is alignment. Rooted, centered, unmoved. You have a choice. Every day, every decision, every interaction. Surrender to chaos, bend and waver, or become unmovable. Anchor yourself in principle. Stand firm. Hold your ground. And live with authority, peace, and power that cannot be taken from you. Rooted, centered, unmoved.
Holding your ground is not an event. It is a daily decision. A decision to stop explaining. A decision to stop reacting. A decision to stay centered when the world leans on you. You were never meant to be pushed around by emotions, opinions, or pressure. You were meant to stand where you are, rooted in clarity, calm, and self-respect. From this moment forward, pause before you respond. Hold before you move. Choose strength over approval.